Team, HH, Thursdays, Yahiko, 300, 0/12. You have entered the 10th gate, Hell of Black Darkness. The path to the last gate was a dangerous one. Especially near the 9th gate, the appearance of minotaurs and Nemean lions almost decimated Yeon-woo's party. Shannon and Han Ryeong, who had been fighting on the front lines, had to recover their stamina in the shadows. HAAA! HAAA! What a ridiculous master! It's been a while since I fought so crazily like this. Shannon and Han Ryeong seemed quite exhausted mentally. Theoretically, they could fight forever without any rest as long as ghosts were supplied to them, but because they were once humans, they couldn't ignore the mental stress from fighting non-stop. The sustained fight against monsters under the titans and giants was that hard. The gate itself and the monsters. They had to fight against both. Still, Yeon-woo silently persevered. Nemesis occasionally asked him to go back. Yeon-woo's other subordinates didn't say anything and moved according to his wishes. It was because they knew how desperate he was from their connection to him. The desire to look for any clues of his little brother. The resolve to gain the Black King's power. He was so desperate for all of it. This was the reason why Yeon-woo had pushed himself to the limit all this time. His subordinates wished to heed their master's wishes. Even if they failed. In the end, Nemesis realized what the other subordinates wanted to do and didn't try to stop him any further. He also wanted the power and clues as much as Yeon-woo did. His longing for his previous owner was so great that he appeared in his dreams. Please bless us with your spirit and wash away the darkness with light in this place. Kreutz planted Zulfikar in the ground and activated a barrier around them with a prayer. Holy Light Barrier. It was a spell that didn't allow the approach of enemies with bad intentions and offered protection from spells. However, the barrier couldn't be transported, so he had to continue to recite the prayer as they walked. Still, with the barrier cast, they were able to rest for a little while. Kreutz was doing everything he could while moving with Yeon-woo's party. Although he must have been curious about many things, as promised, he didn't ask. Yeon-woo realized his sincerity and respected him as a comrade. Are they not allowing us inside until the very end? Yeon-woo looked at the heavy darkness beyond the holy light barrier. The 10th gate, Hell of Black Darkness, had players walk through the territory filled with a fog-like darkness to reach the final destination. Actually, that in itself wasn't that hard for Yeon-woo. Even if his sight was blocked by the darkness, after realizing consciousness from the 20th floor, he was confident he could clear this gate without any problems. However, the problem was the monsters he could see bustling through the darkness. The subordinates of the Titans and the Giants. From the Hydras to the Nemean lions, the monsters that kept on bothering Yeon-woo's party were swarming around. There were tens of them just from a brief head count. Each of them was gruesome and violent. They were all tens of meters tall, and attempting to pass through a bunch of them was like walking through death's door on purpose. It was a relief that the Tannin Fear and Boo's Inferno sight were very useful in controlling the monsters. If not for both, they would have been in critical danger already. Anyway. Yeon-woo turned around. Do I have to have these gazes on me here too? Yeon-woo was sick of the additional gazes that were on him since he entered the hidden stage. Up until now, he felt that the gazes were coming from above. But the closer he got to Tartarus, the gazes were coming from below. And each of them felt unpleasant and fearsome. The Titans and Giants. It was definitely their gazes. The information from the quest window was correct. I almost can't feel the gazes from above like Hermes's and Athena's. Obviously, the stronger the energy from Tartarus was, the weaker the gazes from the heavenly world would be. Other than those he was connected directly through channelings, there were almost no gods or demons who could see Yeon-woo properly. Agar's laughs at the other gods and demons who are frustrated at being unable to see you. Agar's goes to a group of gods and demons who are having a talk about Tartarus and mocks them. The godly society Olympus ignores him. The godly society Asgard is annoyed at Agar's visit. Agar seemed to be doing his own thing again. Yeon-woo just swiped it away from the message window because it was annoying. Just when he was spinning his magic circuit to regenerate, Boo slowly lifted his head. Clack! The click of his bones bumping against each other rang out. Did you find something? After looking into all the ghosts. Here. Yeon-woo had brought all the scattered ghosts from each ghost monster with him. If not, his subordinates would have faded away already. It appears the other Cyclopes have gone this way. I see. Yeon-woo brushed himself off and stood up. Boo had been chasing the traces of the rest of the Cyclopes apostles. He had been able to confirm that they had just cleared through all the gates to cross over to Tartarus. If so, they didn't have any time to lose. Should we move again? Kreutz read Yeon-woo's presence and stopped the prayer, sighing heavily. There were deep, dark circles under his eyes. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Krrrr. The moment they left the holy light barrier, the gazes of the monsters started to crowd over to them. The other players who had been passing through the gates were already in their stomachs. Their starving stomachs that couldn't be satisfied were desperately looking for their next prey. Yeon-woo had already taken back his subordinates. It was impossible to handle all of those monsters. He had to move quickly while avoiding the monsters to get to his destination. Run! Re-D updated strise at n/vel/bin.com. Pat. His party began to run with all their strength. Above Yeon-woo's head, Boo's inferno sight burst open and began to protect them. Qua qua quang. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. You have cleared the hidden stage 10 gates. You have accomplished an unbelievable feat. The title, One Who Endured 10 Trials, has been created. Additional karma is being rewarded. You have gained 20,000 karma. You have gained an additional 30,000 karma. Would you like to challenge the second hidden stage? Goodness, to come here as a player. The Cyclops Brontes spoke in a moved voice, looking at the large bronze door in front of him. He had finally arrived at the entrance of Tartarus, the place he wanted to come to no matter the cost. Yeon-woo rubbed the bronze door. This door had similar patterns to what he saw in the Olympus treasury and Poseidon's temple. It was a great door with all kinds of holy paintings on it. However, the holy paintings on it were much more detailed than on the others. He could see the titans and giants plunging into a dark abyss, falling from the white clouds after being hit by Zeus's lightning. There was a being who didn't take its eyes off of Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades even while falling into the abyss. Cronus. The god of time and death and the king of titans had a more realistic face compared to the other gods. He seemed furious, yet also saddened by his son's betrayal. After the two great wars against the Titanomachia and the Gigantomachia, the gods of Olympus locked up the titans and giants who fought against them. Beyond the heavy darkness, beings like Cronus were probably swarming. It was a prison filled with godly beings that a mortal couldn't dare approach. This was also one of the few locations that gods and demons could move freely without their holy territory, so Yeon-woo couldn't help but feel anxious. The same went for Kreutz. The 10th gate was a horrible place that was worse than all the other gates combined. He was even feeling proud of himself for having cleared it. He supposed it was true that nothing was impossible if he worked hard enough. A bitter smile spread across his face as he suddenly remembered what the regiment leader once said. Yeon-woo examined the bronze door with his draconic eyes and turned to look at Brontes. But how do I get past this? No matter how much he pushed it, the bronze door wouldn't budge. He thought it would open automatically because he had received the quest from Persephone, but it didn't budge. That was understandable since it was a door meant to keep in criminals of Olympus. Of course it wouldn't open easily. If it did, the titans and giants would have kicked it down already. There's a side entrance only Lord Hades knows. To be exact, it's somewhere only him and those allowed by him can move through. Can you tell me where it is? Wait. Brontes closed his eye and muttered a spell. Pat! Light flashed around them. When Brontes held his hand out, something resembling a dandelion seed floated around. It was a seed with an ashy atmosphere above the brilliant white light. Fortunately, it still works. What is it? It's a spirit of the underground. Technically, it's a guide that borrows Lord Hades' strength to lead the way to his location. He originally gave it to us. And it's still possible to summon it. Did he believe that I would come someday? Brontes closed his one eye with a touched face. Tears brimmed in his eyes. He began to speak again, opening his eye. Let's not stay here and get moving quickly. Yeon-woo and Kreutz began to follow the spirit. The bronze door seemed infinitely tall. In the place filled with darkness, Yeon-woo continued to observe the holy paintings. Each of the holy paintings was different. Then, the spirit paused. It disappeared, and a small red portal appeared in the bronze door. Yeon-woo and Kreutz looked at each other without saying anything. With a nod, they entered the portal. When the light settled, Yeon-woo was standing alone under a dark sky above a giant ridge. That moment. You have entered the second hidden stage, Tartarus. Warning! This is a prison where Olympus's criminals, the Titans and Giants, are locked in and under special care by the Bureau. This stage is difficult for players to approach, so a speedy escape is advised. An ominous gaze is reflecting on you. An ominous curse is approaching. The sudden quest, Persephone's long-time wish, has been updated. Please check the quest window. Walk. Inexplicably, Yeon-woo felt creeped out. The gazes of the Titans and Giants that had somewhat been blocked by the bronze door were now directly on him. He could feel a bit of emotion from within the gazes. Curiosity, surprise, longing, envy. They were all different gazes, but there was a similarity among all of them. Distrust. What had they seen to make them feel distrust in Yeon-woo? Could it be? Yeon-woo realized that the exact receiver of the gazes wasn't him but the despair and grief of the Black King. How are you here? Why is his trace here? From far away, he could hear a voice. It was faint, like an echo. Then, Yeon-woo realized that what he was standing on wasn't a ridge but the head of an enormous giant god. Huge eyes that were tens of meters long glared at him. Team, HH, Thursdays, Yahiko, 300, 0/12. Yeon-woo instinctively spread his wings of fire apart and soared up into the sky. A bunch of ghosts wrapped around Yeon-woo to protect him. However, what is this? The giant god didn't take any action. Yeon-woo belatedly realized the eyes that were previously fixed on him weren't focused. He didn't feel any life either. The giant god he had been standing on was already a long-dead corpse. Its size is so. The corpse was lying on its long side, but it had been so tall that he thought it was a ridge, and its length seemed to be tens of kilometers. The eyes beamed like the sun and the moon, and the hair on its flesh and limbs made it seem like a forest. From what Yeon-woo knew, even giants weren't that large. Giants were considered large if they were around 20 meters tall. Considering how the last king of giants had been 30 meters tall, this being couldn't be called a giant. Is it the corpse of a titan? Then is Tartarus filled with these beings? Information about titans and giants wasn't well known within the tower either. There weren't many players who could clear the 10 gates in the first place, and even fewer could pass through the bronze door. His brother had also only promised himself to enter Tartarus at a later time. He hadn't gone there himself. It wouldn't be strange for titans and giants to have strange appearances. In the end, they were gods who couldn't be understood by logic. Yeon-woo flew up higher to examine the corpse more carefully. It was also to look for Kreutz, whom he had lost sight of after entering the portal. He's extremely large. It's weird up here, too. Yeon-woo clicked his tongue as he flew up. The higher he went, the darker it became. He was only able to see because of holy fire and his sharp senses. Tartarus was an abyss, filled only with darkness. When he thought he was high enough, he attempted to release his consciousness. Boom! Boom! The ground suddenly began to shake. Along with it, he felt an intense pressure. Yeon-woo quickly recalled his consciousness. His heart started to pound inside of his chest. His instinct warned him that he would be in danger if he revealed his consciousness here. Instead, he hid his presence as much as possible and turned his body in the other direction. Once again, the world shook up and down. Something was coming towards him through the darkness. As it drew closer, Yeon-woo felt shivers run down his back. A presence comparable to Agar's from the 23rd floor was coming. Athena looks at the same being you are with still eyes. Hermes looks at the same being as you in silence. Agar's clicks his tongue. Handan is silent. The gazes of the gods and demons who used Yeon-woo as a chess piece became silent. Even Handan, who didn't show his messages often. That was how great the being's pressure was. Boom! Yeon-woo swallowed. The giant god was almost right next to him now. He was smaller than the corpse of the dead giant god below, but he was still a hefty size. Yeon-woo looked like a fly next to him. It should be somewhere around here. The being looked around as if searching for something. His movements were slow because of the size of his body. It took a long time for him to turn his neck. But every time he did, the atmosphere trembled, and the heat exuding from his skin made it hard to breathe. Follow Uist stories at n.v.elban.com. Yeon-woo knew the being was searching for him. His eyes were familiar. It was one of the gazes that had been on him while he was clearing through the gates. He had probably appeared here because he knew Yeon-woo had come. However, he just looked around for a while and wasn't able to find Yeon-woo. Because Yeon-woo was so small compared to him and was hiding his presence, it wouldn't be easy to find him. However, that wasn't a relief for Yeon-woo. If he moved in the slightest, it was likely the being would discover him immediately. He couldn't stay there. It was only a matter of time before more beings would come to find him. What should I do? Should I attack first? Yeon-woo held and released Vigrid with hesitation. He knew his attack wouldn't have any effect. Still, he thought he would be able to stall for time. He thought that it would be better to attack and run away than to be a sitting duck. Yeon-woo swallowed and activated his draconic eyes. He could see a few flaws. However, they were near non-existent. The closer one was to perfection, the greater the level of one's existence. It was difficult to make out the flaws of such a being. After inputting magic power into his draconic eyes, he was able to see a clump of flaws around the being's right breast. Yeon-woo tightened his hold on Vigrid. He only had one chance. He needed to activate all his authorities and attack the being instantly. If not, that was the end. His eyes were red with anxiety. Just then, he could feel the being's gaze turn towards the opposite direction. Yeon-woo's eyes widened. Now! Suddenly! You foolish bastard! Open speaking rang in Yeon-woo's ear. His body was swept aside. Swag! That was when the giant god turned to look in Yeon-woo's direction. He looked around and muttered to himself. Did I feel wrong? The giant god narrowed his eyes and began to walk again. This place must not be it. Did he run away already? Judging that Yeon-woo wasn't there, the giant god looked away again and started to move. Boom! Yeon-woo stood up only once the footsteps had faded away. The being was so large that it took a while for its footsteps to disappear. You attempted to attack a titan? To none other than Perses, at that. You foolhardy bastard! The one who rescued Yeon-woo crumpled his face after realizing there wasn't any danger. Do you know how complicated things almost became because of you? Yeon-woo stayed silent. There were about 10 people in the group around him. All of them were warriors with bronze armor and gear. Each of their auras was outstanding. The one who seemed to be the commander even had a divine atmosphere around him. Dis-Pluto. Dis-Pluto was a group of warriors under Hades who protected the underground and stopped the titans and giants who tried to break through the bronze door. They may have looked like ordinary warriors on the surface, but each and every one of them had a level that could match a lower-level superior beings. Yeon-woo realized he had survived thanks to them. The Perseus whom the commander had spoken about was a titan who symbolized destruction. If Yeon-woo clashed with him, things would have gotten out of control. Still, it's a relief you're safe. Are you injured anywhere? Just then, Kreutz jumped out from behind Dis-Pluto and examined Yeon-woo. When Yeon-woo nodded, Kreutz sighed in relief. It seemed like he had been discovered and rescued before Yeon-woo. The commander confirmed that the giant god Perseus was gone once more and turned back to Yeon-woo. It was hard to tell what he looked like because he was wearing armor, but his eyes were intense. Anyways, I don't know how you received the help of the spirit that His Majesty gave to the Cyclops Brontes, but you are related to him, correct? Yes, that's right. Yeon-woo nodded. His Majesty has ordered me to bring you to him safely. However, this is the territory of the Titans. If they catch us, we're done for, so follow me carefully. Yeon-woo's eyes widened. By His Majesty, are you talking about Hades? It seemed like the missing Hades was still in Tartarus. The commander frowned. Don't speak his name in vain, player. He has taken his hands off the tower for a while now, but he's not someone who you guys can. I've brought a message from Persephone. Please let me meet Hades. From Lady Persephone. The commander was about to become angry but paused. A player who had come on the Queen's request. If so, he needed to lead them as respectfully as possible. He seemed unsatisfied, but there was nothing he could do. The commander turned around stiffly. Anyways. Follow me. Fortunately, it seemed like things would proceed smoothly. Yeon-woo and Kreutz began to follow Dis-Pluto. ******. The commander called himself Ray. He was the chief of the 19th squad out of the 24 corps. Yeon-woo knew the names of most of the gods and demons, but it was a name he had never heard before. I suppose that makes sense. The only thing known about each godly society is which greater gods leads it. Obviously, each of the societies like Olympus, Asgard, and El Infernal comprised many beings. Not only did the societies have gods, but they also had the subordinate gods to the gods and the soldiers below them. The scale of the upper world was incredibly vast. However, in most cases, their names weren't known, or they weren't famous even if their names were known. It was because they weren't memorable enough to the players of the lower world. Ray was one of those beings. Still, because he belonged to the heavenly world, he had a holiness about him as well. Yeon-woo couldn't imagine how strong he was. However, is he stronger than Seseong-nim? People who had holiness meant they had become supernatural. It was a peak that all mortals wished to reach. Although no player had gotten this far, other than Al-Foroni, when Yeon-woo compared Ray to the Martial King, he didn't think Ray was stronger. Of course, it could have been because Ray hadn't released his holiness around him, but the Martial King hadn't shown his full strength either. He hadn't used his full power even when he was fighting the Summer Queen. Just what is the standard for holiness? Is it not something you can gain just because your level is higher? Yeon-woo's eyes deepened. Or is there something preventing you from getting it? Yeon-woo continued to walk as he pondered these thoughts. What are you looking at? Ray felt Yeon-woo's gaze on him and turned back to look at him. It's nothing. Yeon-woo shook his head firmly. Ray snorted and looked forward again. I'll say this in advance, but I don't like you players that much. Yeon-woo's eyes widened. Can I know why? Why? There are a lot of reasons why. This battlefield where we fight our entire lives for our beliefs is just a playground and training ground for you guys. Yeon-woo shut his mouth. It seemed like he was talking about the players who crossed over into Tartarus after clearing the 10 gates. They came here to raise their skills, risking their lives. However, that was only what the players thought. How would that look to those who considered this place the battleground of their lives? Only you guys think of this place as easy. Even Olympus in the heavenly world doesn't dare think that. Everyone who comes here dies because they are weak or runs away once they think they've learned something worthwhile. How can we like them? Moreover, at the moment, each soldier is important to us. But because of you, 10 of us had to come to this dangerous place. Just know that I'm not saying any more than this because you're Lady Persephone's messenger and you know where Cyclops Brontes is. It was a warning for him not to die futilely and to know his place and stay low. It sounded like he was being rude because he was here first, but Yeon-woo could feel the bitterness and urgency behind his words. Is that how bad the situation is? Just when Yeon-woo's eyes settled deeply. Stop! Ray suddenly paused, using open speaking towards the party. Just when Yeon-woo was wondering what was going on. Kwang! The ground they were walking on suddenly crumbled, and a giant god popped out. I found you! It was the Titan Perses, who had just been searching for Yeon-woo. He smiled evilly and stretched his hand out to where Yeon-woo was. Run away! Kwak Wang! Ray shouted frantically and held up his shield. Holy power was released in front of him, causing smoke to whirl around. However, the Titan Perses was one who could somewhat hold a battle with Hades. He wasn't someone that a lower-level being like Ray could block. Ray couldn't hold him for long and became a bloodied mess, then disappeared. Where are you? Trying to go? The giant god didn't stop there and waved his arms to catch his target, Yeon-woo. Strong winds blew around them like a tornado. Pluto frantically stepped in front of Yeon-woo. They looked ready to die in battle. Yeon-woo clenched his teeth and released his authorities. No, he tried to. The channelings were blocked, like they were covered by something. The channeling with Athena is weak. The stigmata of the goddess is dissipating. The channeling with Sito is weaker. The Sea King Stone has failed to activate. The channeling with Agars is weak. Hyoungshin Axel is dissipating. Agars is furious. The only authority that worked was awakening his dragon body. While he was hoping that the 72 Bien and wave of fire would work for a while, the being's great shadow was right above his head. That moment. KRRRNG. Blue light gathered in the dark sky and turned into lightning, landing in the face of the giant god. The giant god screamed and stepped back. He covered his face with his hands as blood spurted like a fountain from his injuries. And in front of him, a god swung his sword, wearing bronze armor that emitted an ashy. The darkness simmered like fire, hugging him like it was protecting him, then stretched out around him like spider webs. He was way smaller than the Titan, but the aura around him was greater than the giant gods. Every time he swung his sword, a more powerful strength than Poseidon's spread out. Yeon-woo realized who it was right away. A superior god who had been born as the oldest out of the 6 brothers, including Zeus, but had thrown away the throne of Olympus for his little brothers. Hades. The king of the underworld had come. Hades. Hades. You dare. Kwa kwa kwang. Hades swung his sword roughly. All he did was swing it in the air, but it seemed like the sky would split with every stroke. The tightly condensed darkness fell in a downpour, and the heat that arose from it lashed at Perses. Yeon-woo stood and looked at the scene blankly. There are no flaws. Complete perfection. The slight flaws he had seen within Hermes and Athena weren't present in Hades. Was that the strength of a true superior god? The impact of every stroke shook Tartarus up and down, and he felt like his mind would be destroyed just from looking at it. As always, if it weren't for his cold-blooded trait, he wouldn't have been able to endure it. God. Yeon-woo was able to know what that word meant after seeing Hades. All laws and principles were moving around Hades. A message has arrived from Hermes. Message, it's been a while seeing uncle like that. Has it been about 700 years? A message has arrived from Hermes. Message, it wasn't just me. Ares and Heracles were also enamored with his strength in the beginning. My sister Athena was his biggest fan. A message has arrived from Athena. Message, would you shut up? The being who was able to surprise the goddess of wisdom and war. Hades was proving that he was indeed the oldest of the gods of Olympus. You dare? Did you ask me if I dare? Perseus stretched his hand out to grab Hades while he easily avoided it. Perseus, you've finally gone crazy. You grew bigger after consuming Cronus's corpse. Have you grown bolder too? You think you're Cronus, hey? Hades gripped his sword tighter. Erg. The darkness sent through his arm turned his sword pitch black. I must wake you up from those delusions first. Quack. Hades brought his sword down. The blade drew a line from Perseus's right shoulder to his lower body. Quoo! The body of the giant god burst into flames. Something began to flow from his injuries. As black smoke wafted, his abnormally large body shrank, like a deflating balloon. No! No! The giant god squirmed to hold onto the smoke somehow. Perseus tried to heal his injuries with holy power, but Hades swung his sword again, not giving him the opportunity. Every time the sword flashed, the amount of black smoke that crept out increased. It filled the air around them. What is that? Yeon-woo looked at the black smoke silently. He knew it was the power that made the Titan abnormally larger and caused the strange occurrences in Tartarus. But why is it so familiar? Just when Yeon-woo's face turned stiff. Brrrr. The despair and grief of the Black King suddenly cried out. Yeon-woo looked for the reason why. Kwang! Hades brought down his final blow. Then, Perseus's head was cut off, soaring through the air. It was frightening to see the massive head fly. A black bead-like object was left where he had been. What a rat-like bastard! Did he get away during that time? Hades snorted, then flicked his finger to destroy the black bead. He turned his body to where Yeon-woo was. Despite the distance, right when they made eye contact. Pat! Hades arrived right in front of Yeon-woo in the blink of an eye. He looked much more sneering up close. Yeon-woo stepped back in surprise and tried to move his hand towards Vigrid, but his body froze, and he couldn't move. Although Hades didn't release much of his aura, Yeon-woo felt like his soul was being squeezed. Yeon-woo had met Poseidon and many other gods, but Yeon-woo was able to use his trait to stay calm. But in front of Hades, he couldn't. The trait didn't activate. His body didn't move, as if he had lost control over it. Hades was superior to all the gods and demons he had met so far. However, I don't like it. Yeon-woo's face crumpled. Being held over like this by someone else was quite unpleasant. He activated time difference and quickly woke up his cells through his magic circuit in the slowed-down world. Then, when Hades opened his mouth, Yeon-woo was able to regain his composure after time began to flow normally. He could stand in front of Hades confidently. Hermes nods in satisfaction. Athena looks at you with a warm gaze. Agar's giggles. Handan is silent. For a moment, Hades's eyes shined keenly. There are many faces I missed. Are you a child cherished by my brother's children? Agar's. It's been a while since I saw that demon king. And Hades's sentence faded away as he looked Yeon-woo up and down. Yeon-woo felt like everything about him was being revealed. Then, Hades's gaze stopped at his black bracelet and sabaton. The despair and grief of the Black King rang out in response. However, it was quite different from what he usually felt. They were shaking roughly in anger. And his inheritances. A corner of Hades's mouth curved. In a way, it looked like he was smirking, but it also looked like a bitter smile. I thought you just brought Persephone's message, but you're a more interesting child than I thought. Hades chuckled. And the human that's over there has quite an interesting toy. He glanced back at Kreutz, who was gasping for breath with the holy sword Zulfikar. Kreuz's eyes were shaking under his helm. Then, Hades shouted at the members of Dis Pluto, who were prostrating on the ground. "We're returning to the temple. ******. You have successfully completed the sudden quest, Persephone's long-time wish. Additional karma is being rewarded. You have earned 10,000 karma. You have earned an additional 15,000 karma. As rewards, you have earned the Ring of Life, Persephone's holy artifact, Blessing of Spring, Persephone's blessing, and Judgment Division, Persephone's authority. The quest Persephone had given was to meet Hades and confirm if he was alive or dead. Since he had met Hades, the news would have been successfully delivered to Persephone. Thanks to that, a message that he completed the quest popped up. A ring wrapped in light came floating down above Yeon-woo's palm. It was a ring made of wild flowers. Persephone's holy artifact, the Ring of Life. Yeon-woo confirmed the rewards. Ring of Life. Category, Ring. Rank, Holy Artifact. Summary, a gift the goddess of spring, seedlings, and the underground, Persephone, gave to the one who found her husband in her stead. Vivid energy of life spins around it, so just by wearing it, your exhaustion will be relieved. Also, it adds buffs the soul of the user. Soul life. The strong vestiges within humans can turn the soul into various colors. These colors will be purified to cleanse the mind and eases you of detrimental stimuli. It has the effect of lowering the exhaustion stacked up inside of you from 20% to 40%. Soul growth. To mortals, who will die no matter what, souls are a forbidden territory that is hard to reach. This has the effect of stimulating the soul continually to help realize the meaning within it. Authority of the use of soul power and soul pressure is given. The moment that Yeon-woo wore the Ring of Life, he could feel the pressure in his body that he didn't know he had disappear. Tartarus was a prison designed to hold gods. Of course it would be a challenging environment for mortals to roam freely in. Kreutz was moving comparatively freely with the holy power given from Zulfikar. However, Yeon-woo was different. He had the despair and grief of the Black King, but neither of them helped to ease the pressure of Tartarus. He was receiving greater pressure than most because of his draconic, demonic, and divine blessings. The Ring of Life stimulated his soul and gave vitality to it, helping him relieve the pressure. In other words, the authority to move freely in and out of Tartarus had been given. Also, because it could help on other floors as well, it was a generous gift. It was an outstanding reward that wasn't lacking in any aspect. However, you lack the qualifications to view the Blessing of Spring, Persephone's blessing, and Judgment Division. You must satisfy the new conditions to view them. Only the names of the other two rewards given with the Ring of Life popped up, along with a label that said unable to be viewed. There was something Persephone said before he had entered the gates. The quest window says that 3 rewards will be given, but you will most likely only be able to use the Ring of Life after you meet my husband. What is the reason for that? The Ring of Life is a present that I'm gathering my holy power to give you, so you will definitely be able to use it. However, the other 2 are different. It is because of the different environment of Tartarus. Persephone's explanation was simple. Tartarus was cut off from the outside. It was said to be the only area that the heavenly world of the 98th floor couldn't access. That's probably why all of my other authorities other than Dragon Body Awakening dissipated. Although his channeling connected with Athena, Agars, Hondan, his authorities had failed for the same reason. Then what should I do to unlock the 2 rewards? You'll probably have to be acknowledged by Hades. Tartarus is pretty much my husband's holy territory. It meant he had 2 options, being acknowledged by Hades or leaving Tartarus. Just then. Ding! A continuation quest has been created. Another message popped up again. Yeon-woo checked the quest. Continuation quest / Persephone's desperate wish. Summary: you have succeeded in finding Hades, as Persephone so desperately requested of you. However, Hades isn't in the best situation. The war with the Titans and Giants has been prolonged, and Tartarus has become ruins in many areas. Help Hades here, be acknowledged by him, and support him so he can return to his original temple. Only then will you be able to view the details of the blessing of spring, and the authority, judgment division. Conditions to be satisfied, Hades's acknowledgement, Hades's return. Follow EOist stories at n.v.elben.com. Time limit, none. Rewards. 1. Blessing of spring, qualification. 2. Authority, judgment division, qualification. Yeon-woo clicked his tongue. Nothing's ever easy. Persephone had guessed that Hades was tied up and had hidden a continuation quest. If he wanted her blessing and authority, he had to help Hades. She had acted like she would give him all the rewards after he found Hades, but the last condition was hidden. Yeon-woo laughed. Actually, he did want Persephone's blessing and authority, but he wasn't desperate for them. His connections were cut off right now, but there were still many gods and demons who wanted to make provisional contracts with him by giving him their authorities. Of them, many things were similar to or even better than what Persephone offered. However, Yeon-woo wasn't angry. She must have been quite worried about her husband to do this. Although players probably couldn't be of much help to gods, she still wanted her husband to have all the help he could get. He understood her desperate wish better than anyone, so he didn't want to nitpick. And I have to stay behind here anyway. Because he hadn't found the other 2 Cyclops brothers, Yeon-woo had to stay behind in Tartarus to help Hades. Only then would he be able to unseal the pocket watch. However, it won't be easy. He clicked his tongue, seeing ruins as he followed Hades and Pluto. Although Tartarus was normally a place of darkness void of life, it looked nightmarish. There were traces of battle everywhere, with corpses of gods scattered on the ground. Most of the Hades's garrisons seemed to be crushed or unsalvageable. Just then, far away, he could see Hades's temple. However, it was hard to call it a temple because of how deserted it was for one of the 3 greater gods of Olympus. Had he read Yeon-woo's eyes? You're not asking anything. Even though you must be quite curious. Hades chuckled, looking at Yeon-woo. It was a cynical laugh. Yeon-woo had felt this on the journey here, but Hades had a cold personality. Team, HH, Thursdays, Yahiko, 2/12. Yeon-woo's eyes met Hades's. They were dark, and it was hard to read what he was thinking. All the gods and demons Yeon-woo had met so far were true to their feelings. They all laughed, expressed anger, or had an unreadable smile. There was a pattern to their faces. But the cold smile on Hades's face was different. It was deep. Yeon-woo felt like his soul would be sucked in just by looking at it. It was like Tartarus itself. For a moment, Yeon-woo wondered why Hades was asking a question like this. However, it'll be best to pick a question well. I prioritize fair trade over all. Trust? Respect? What does all that matter? It's all useless. Giving as much as one receives. You can make deals in that manner. I'm asking you to trade because I also have a question for you. Yeon-woo nodded. He could tell what kind of beliefs and personality Hades had. Who was the giant in the place where I arrived? The corpse of the giant had been kilometers long. Perseus was huge too, but compared to the corpse, he was nothing. The corpse was like a mountain. So, that's what you're going to ask? Hades smirked. Cronus. Yeon-woo widened his eyes. Do you know Cronus? Isn't he the king of the Titans? That is so. And he's also the father Zeus, Poseidon, and I locked up. The horrible father who ate his own children. The legends of Olympus began with the king of the gods, Cronus, eating his children. He heard a prophecy that one child would take his position, and he began to swallow them as they were born. However, his wife, Rhea, couldn't bear to see such an atrocity happen and hid the youngest, Zeus. Zeus grew up away from everyone else and returned to challenge Cronus. Cronus vomited all the children he had swallowed, and they became Zeus's trustworthy allies. They were Hades, Poseidon, Hestia, Hera, and Demeter. After the long war, the brothers succeeded in locking Cronus and his supporters, the Titans, in Tartarus. That meant that Cronus was the beginning of the Olympian legends and their greatest villain. But such a being died. Could a god also die? And also, wasn't Cronus the Black King? So far, all the gods hadn't called the Black King by his name. They only referred to him as he. Hermes said it was because of the pledge of the Styx River. But with the way things were, his expectations may have been wrong. You seem to be wondering how such a being can die. That is correct. I suppose you would. Since we stole time from him, it means we stole everything he had. To become a complete god, you need absolute immortality, and people with immortality need time. Isn't a true god a being who rules over time? But then he went and left like that. He died. The god of time and death. Was he saying that because they had taken time from him, only death remained? And thanks to that, I was able to receive a part of the death. And anyways, that's what happened. Hades waved his hand as if he didn't want to speak about it any further. However, Yeon-woo didn't miss it. Hades had looked him up and down quickly. As if he was trying to find something. From me. What? But Hades must have thought he couldn't learn much from Yeon-woo and continued to speak again. Then, I'll ask a question now. Yes, sir. Did you hear anything else from Persephone? Yeon-woo thought of when he left Persephone's holy territory. The entirety of my task was to look for where you were. Is that so? I see. Hades smiled bitterly. It was the first emotion that Yeon-woo saw behind that cold smile. Yeon-woo thought he looked somewhat lonely. Ask your next question. That was the end of your question just now. So. Hades looked as if he was asking Yeon-woo what the problem was. Yeon-woo swallowed. Hades had just said himself that he prioritized fair trade over all. Was that how much he valued Persephone's message? It's nothing. You say a lot of useless things. Quickly ask your next question. Then. Is the eternal battle tiring? The second question. Yeon-woo had already seen the battlefield, but he wanted to hear it from Hades's perspective. The battle? Who? The battle. Hades smirked and laughed. If you can call it a battle. The laugh became a cold smile. To be exact, it was a smile turned against himself. Tartarus is already on the verge of destruction. That was how Hades's explanation began. Hundreds of years ago, he had first come to Tartarus because of strange things happening there. The situation wasn't much better than the one back then. Didn't you think that the first titan you saw, Perseus, was abnormally large? Even though he's a god, he shouldn't have been that big or had that much soul power. Yeon-woo thought of the giant god's body that was high enough to reach the sky and nodded heavily. It's because he absorbed Cronus's holy power. Cronus's holy power had not disappeared just because he died. The titans and giants who seeked revenge looked for ways to understand how to use Cronus's inheritance, and they had found something. Their abnormal size was only a side effect of that. Then is the black smoke that I saw Cronus's holy power. He thought of the smoke that was exuded from Perseus's body when Hades attacked him. It's not easy to deal with criminals who have an old king's holy power. I continued to lose territory as they stole the power, and now, I'm only left with this place. Hades muttered to himself, thinking about how ironic it was to have the prison taken over by its inmates. So. Yeon-woo recalled the exhausted faces of Pluto. They were soldiers who expected the titans and giants to soon take over Tartarus. What will happen if they do? This time, it was time for Hades to ask his question. Human. What is the reason you have come here? Yeon-woo paused and looked directly at Hades as he spoke. To retrieve Cunning. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Yes, sir. Hades laughed again. He was flabbergasted. How funny. Do you know what that even means? Yeon-woo didn't look away from Hades. It means that you'll be a part of me. You'll become my shadow and be the apostle that leads all my followers. Can you do that? Hades narrowed his eyes. Like how I cannot accept you, it seems you don't have a single intention of serving anyone. Am I correct? Yeon-woo didn't say anything. He just continued to look at Hades. He would have tried to look for another option under normal circumstances. Even as Hades spoke about rejecting him, the way he was acting was different. What an amusing human. You don't react much either. With his arms on the armrests of the throne, Hades looked down at Yeon-woo loftily. You said you wanted Cunning? Then I'll tell you the conclusion first. It's impossible. Not because I don't want to but because I don't have Cunning. Yeon-woo's eyes became bigger. That means. I'm saying it's broken. Since a long time ago, when I fought with Typhon, the king of giants. If Cunning was still here. I wonder if we would have been defeated this one-sidedly. Like how Astrap shot lightning bolts, symbolizing Zeus, and Triana caused tornadoes, symbolizing Poseidon, Cunning emanated a heavy darkness and slowly pushed enemies toward death. It could also hide the presence of its owner and end the lives of its enemies without any sound. Hades was currently using a sword instead of Cunning, but he couldn't use his holy power to the fullest with just the sword. He always felt something was missing without the holy artifact by his side. If only he had the helm he used to bring Cronus down, the situation wouldn't have developed like this. No. If only all the Cyclopes had been gathered. Yeon-woo's eyes widened. What do you mean? I'm saying that if the 3 Cyclops brothers who gave me Cunning had gathered, Cunning could be created again. However, with only one present, that's not possible. The despair of the Black King trembled. Brontes was screaming after he heard what Hades said. Yeon-woo pressed his bracelet down as he spoke. Only one? Didn't Starapes and Arjesh get here safely? This time, Hades was the surprised one. How do you know that? However, it's as I said. The first, Brontes, went missing on the way here, and the second Starapes, died from a Titan attack. Right now, only Arjesh is left behind, and he's helping us as much as he can. But there are limits to what he can do himself. Cunning was an item that was created by all the brothers together. His abilities aren't like before, either. The black bracelet began to tremble violently. Brontes was crying at the fact that his second brother was dead. Nonetheless, if I can use this well. Yeon-woo thought that things might go smoother than he thought. Hades. Are you saying that if the 3 Cyclops brothers are gathered, Cunning can be restored? And that you will gain the upper hand in the war? Hades couldn't read what Yeon-woo was thinking and furrowed his eyebrows. That is so. But the battle won't be turned completely. There is a method to make things better than they are now, even though I didn't want to use that. But what are you talking about? Then, if I solve that problem, can you give me Cunning in return after the war is over? What in the world are you talking about? Please just give me an affirmation. Will you give me Cunning even if I don't become your apostle? Hades's face crumpled. Fine. If you want, I'll give it to you. I swear on my name. But if you can't keep your promise, you won't meet a good end. You've sworn on your name. Then please call Arjesh over to here. With an item of Starapes. Hades looked at Yeon-woo with dissatisfaction after he cut him off, but he assumed that Yeon-woo could do something based on his confident eyes. What was he trying to do? He couldn't read Yeon-woo's mind. He guessed Yeon-woo would do something with the authority of the Black King, but he didn't know what exactly. He was also a god of death, but all he did was punish the dead. He couldn't imagine doing anything else with them. However, it couldn't hurt to try, and if Yeon-woo had humiliated him, it wasn't too late to punish him later. Hades clapped his hands to summon a servant to bring the Cyclops Arjesh, along with an item of his dead brother, Starapes. Then, he looked at Yeon-woo silently. A player with an item of his. Hades didn't plan on becoming angry as Poseidon had. He considered what he did back then a mistake. Yet even if he could return to back then, he would do the same thing. He was able to be where he was today as a result of his actions back then. All his authorities were from him. Like the titans and giants. Just then, the door opened, and Arjesh slowly walked in. Like Pluto, his face was exhausted from the long war. He held old anvils in both hands. "Did you call for me?" "Arjesh. Put those items down in front of that player over there." "Yes, sir." Arjesh carefully put down the anvils in front of Yeon-woo without question. "From now, I'll allow you to meet your brothers. Find new stories on novelbin.com. What?" Yeon-woo stretched his hand out for the anvils, looking at Arjesh's dead eyes. Arjesh was about to ask him what he was doing. Walk. Suddenly, a ray of light spread around them, and a soul appeared in front of Arjesh. Arjesh's single eye widened. The face he wanted to see was now right in front of him. "Arjesh. Be brother. Why are you so thin? Why did things get so bad? Is it really you, brother? Finally, after 200 years. We will be able to be together." Arjesh's eye widened. Then. "Summon of the dead has been activated. Who would you like to summon?" "Starapes." A blue light began to shine. "Where is?" Starapes couldn't tell where he was. He occasionally felt himself floating around without being tied up anywhere. The sudden return to reality was a shock to him. And this isn't possible. Hades burst up from his throne with a flustered face for the first time. According to what he knew, it was impossible for a soul to be used in that way. He was a god of death, not a god who ruled over death. Also, moving souls in the way one desired was against laws and principles. Gods were beings who enforced rules, not broke them. The fact that Yeon-woo was able to do such a thing was... Ha! Hades plopped down on his throne with a sigh. His wrinkled forehead showed his conflicting state of mind. At the same time, albeit for a short while, countless emotions swept through his eyes. Jealousy, envy, even greed. Hermes smiles bitterly, looking at his uncle. Athena looks at her uncle with still eyes. "Don't look at me like that. It's humiliating to be compared to that idiot Poseidon." Hades knew that his niece and nephew were looking at him through their channeling with Yeon-woo. And that they were watching warily in case he tried to hurt Yeon-woo. He snorted. He acknowledged that he made a mistake, but he didn't have any regrets. Also, he didn't care about something continuing his power. He was already gone from this world. There was no need to be stuck in the past. Also, he knew what the children of Hermes's generation thought of him, so he wasn't displeased by their gazes. He was just irritated at being compared to Poseidon, the simple fool who crushed anything he didn't like. Hermes smiles mysteriously at his uncle. Athena nods at her uncle. Anyways. Hades narrowed his eyes. So that's how you are using his power? Incredible. The Black King's power broke the laws of nature. That, in itself, was a miracle that exceeded what a god could do. It was the power that went beyond a greater god's, the power of a primordial god or a conceptual god. Hades looked at Yeon-woo with observant eyes. Meanwhile, Yeon-woo had been focusing on the conversation between the three Cyclopes and missed the exchange between Hades and his niece and nephew. Starapes. Brother. Brontes quickly ran to Starapes and hugged him tightly. Starapes muttered to himself with a blank face, and then his face turned to one of surprise. Brother. Yes. Starapes. How are you in this condition? Even you. Brother. Even our youngest. The three Cyclops brothers hugged each other, tears dripping down their faces. It was a reunion they didn't think would come after they split up 200 years ago. They remained like that for a while, crying. Brontes and Starapes were dead souls and didn't have any tears to shed anyway, but their sadness could be perceived. Starapes. Then, Yeon-woo stepped up. A part of him was crying as well. The union of dead brothers. That was his greatest wish. He wished it was him and his brother in that position. He also thought it wasn't going to be long until he achieved it. He felt sorry for interrupting their reunion, but there were things that needed to be done first. Starapes turned around. He recognized Yeon-woo as the one who called him to this place. His gaze immediately sunk. So you are the human who called me here? Yes, sir. A power that breaks the laws of nature and creates new ones. You must be his descendant. Starapes was the one among the three brothers who had mastered theology. This field was occasionally called philosophy sometimes, and all his words were so unclear that it was hard to understand them. Bad fate is still fate. It's also due to the result of the principles of causality that we brothers could meet like this. All right. Why have you called me here? You may have already felt this, but you can't stay here for long. So I'll get to the point. Yeon-woo explained the situation in Tartarus shortly and why Cunning was needed for Pluto to turn the tables. He said it was only possible after the three Cyclops brothers gathered again. Starapes listened to Yeon-woo while sitting down, and he organized his thoughts after closing his eyes. Then, he opened his eyes slowly and spoke. That means I have to stay here for some time. Yes, that is so. And to do that, I must be bound to you. Yeon-woo nodded. Starapes had a conflicted face for a moment. A holy being shouldn't be bound to a mere human. Also, the remnant of the Black King Yeon-woo had inherited was a mortal enemy of the brothers. He was displeased at the fact that he had to follow Yeon-woo's orders. Starapes. Just then, Brontes gripped Starapes' shoulder. What happened in the past is all in the past. And that child is him. You are dead now, so why are you still caught up in the past? Brother. Also. Brontes' eyes were dark. I don't want us to be split up again. Rajesh nodded firmly next to him. His exhausted face looked determined. It was the determination not to lose his two brothers again. From the time when they were born, they were abused and bullied because of their strange appearances. They were discarded by the world. And so, they were the world to each other. It wasn't an option for them to be split any longer. In the end, Starapes accepted the persuasion of his brothers. He looked at Yeon-woo with a deep gaze. Fine, human. I'm only accepting because it sounds too good to be true, but I accept to be bound to you. Yeon-woo nodded. However, Starapes spoke flatly, as if he was telling Yeon-woo not to be too happy. However, I have one condition. I'm different from my kind brother. I swear on the Styx River that if you try to ignore these conditions I give after you become my master, I'll destroy my own soul to refuse your orders. Please speak. The moment I am bound, I'll follow your orders. However, that's only for things related to Cunning, justice, and order. If you try to use me for your own greed, that won't happen. Yeon-woo spoke assuredly. Starapes glared at Yeon-woo for a while. It was hard to read his hard eyes. Fine. Let's begin the contract. He nodded. Yeon-woo held his hand out to him. He had guaranteed Starapes that he wouldn't use him for personal gain, but actually, Yeon-woo didn't care about that too much. They had no idea. The constraints of the soul collection were that they couldn't do anything according to their own will. Once you're bound, that's the end. He could hear Shannon muttering, another one's been caught. Flap flap, to himself, but Yeon-woo ignored it. After the contract was finished. From a lowly soul to a monster portent. It's beyond lacking compared to my godly body, but this isn't too bad of an upgrade. Starapes muttered to himself after checking his body's condition. Rajesh looked overjoyed that his brothers were here, even though they were only souls. Also, you have succeeded in binding an outstanding godly being. You have achieved an unbelievable feat. Additional karma is being rewarded. You have gained 10,000 karma. You have gained an additional 15,000 karma. The sudden quest, Helm of Darkness, has been created. Yeon-woo checked the new continuation quest of Persephone's long-time wish. Sudden quest / Helm of Darkness. Summary: the King of Giants, Typhon, has found a way to take the energy of the dead Cronus, and he has increased the combative power of the Titans and the Giants. The Titans, having become larger, started to plunder parts of the lands to take over Tartarus. Due to this, Hades and Dis Pluto suffered from continued losses and were forced to retreat into the Temple of the Underground. While the Temple of the Underground was surrounded by enemies, threatened by the danger of being taken over, you appeared. When you gathered the scattered three Cyclops brothers, you were able to find a way to increase the power of the Dis Pluto. First, you have to regain Hades's power. Help the three Cyclops brothers to create the holy artifact Cunning. Once you have finished this holy artifact, you will receive great admiration from Hades. Conditions: gather materials for Cunning. Apodis scale, 30/45. Kothron liquid, 0/5. Silent conch, 12/300. Creating Cunning. Refining 0%. Smelting 0%. Cleansing 0%. Sea grafting 0%. Overall progress 0%. Rewards: Hades's affinity plus 150. Title Artisan up TED Chaptars NN.com. Authority to use the holy artifact Cunning. It's up. Cunning was one of the most powerful holy artifacts. Just by attempting to create it, he would gain an incredible amount of karma and rewards. Yeon-woo especially focused on the title Artisan. It was the title that only 5 people in the tower had earned, including Henova, Brahm, and Victoria. If he could acquire this, I'll be able to view more information about the pocket watch. A title given by the tower wasn't something to be taken lightly. It was something only given to those who reached the pinnacles in their respective fields. However, there was something that worried him. I don't have many of the required materials. When he looked back at Hades, a cold smile returned to his face. There's something we need to deal with before we can fix Cunning. Rajesh's face turned ashen after realizing what Hades was going to say. Yeon-woo clicked his tongue after guessing what Hades wanted. Cunning is an outstanding artifact and requires precious materials to make. However, as you know already, we are severely lacking in soldiers and resources. There's no way we'll have any of the materials. Even if we did, we can't afford to use them for it. Yeon-woo nodded in understanding. Even if it was for Cunning, they couldn't give him the resources needed for the war. That meant, I'll have to get them myself. Hades nodded with the same cold smile still on his face. That is correct. He might have looked arrogant for someone asking for help, but Yeon-woo was familiar with that particular attitude. Those who were exhausted mentally to the extreme from a long war. They lived with bitterness and cold smiles on their faces, but some didn't let go of hope until the end. That was Hades right now. It would have been nice if Cunning was created. But he didn't look like he would be disappointed even if it didn't work out. Hades nodded with the cold smile still on his face. Yes. And we don't have much time. The Titans and Giants are ready to attack anytime, and Cronus's energy is almost completely gone. Do it in that time. I will. Yeon-woo's eyes flashed. No. I have to. Hades raised a corner of his mouth. It was a different expression from the cold smile he had shown. It contained the appearance of a warrior ready for combat. He might have looked like that in the past when he fought with Cronus. Good. I wish you success, descendant of the Black King. Then. Pat. Black light scattered around him, and the world around Yeon-woo changed. The trial of the hidden stage Tartarus has been paused by Hades's authority. You have gained the title Hades's representative. You are being transported to the 31st floor. Today, there was a commotion in the village because of Shi. Brahm chuckled as he sat down next to the bed where Ananta was sitting. During this time, he always sat next to his daughter and made small talk with her. He hadn't been able to stay with her for a long time, so he wanted to be next to her now. 3 boys got into a fist fight about who was going to be Shi's boyfriend. Haha. Who does she take after to be so popular? Brahm glanced at his daughter from the fruits he was cutting. Ananta was looking out the window with blank eyes. For a moment, sadness filled Brahm's face, but he didn't express it. In these cases, usually, the parents would defuse the fight. But here, the parents cheered them on in the background to win. I've been here for over a year now, but there are so many interesting people here. Anyways, after that ruckus, what happened after was a sight to see. After he finished cutting the fruit, Brahm stabbed it with a fork and placed it in Ananta's hand. But the fork fell out of her hand and into the blanket. Knowing she still had a long recovery ahead of her, Brahm carefully fed his daughter the piece of fruit. Ananta opened her mouth slightly and began to nibble at the fruit. It was an extremely slow process. It was a wonder how she was able to swallow it. So one of them barely won and tried to confess to Shi, but Shi rejected him, saying he was ugly. She did the same thing to the other 2. The 3 boys were left crying. It was a mess. They didn't cry after losing the fight. Goodness! Love is pretty amazing, isn't it? Arsha is so outspoken. I think she's popular because she takes after you. Ah, is that too far? Even though he was talking about Shi, Ananta continued to stare blankly out the window. She had cherished Shi so much, but she couldn't say anything. She was like a doll. Her appearance frustrated Brahm. He could no longer see his daughter, who used to shout at him in a rebellious voice in that weak body of hers. What was making his daughter suffer so much? It would be nice if she could speak her mind. He had once been a god, but there was nothing he could do right now. This was one of the reasons he hated his godly status. Brahm was constantly feeling apologetic because he thought he was a bad father. Then, Brahm thought of the flour cookies Yeon-woo had coincidentally obtained. He had said there was a diluted amount of nectar within it. Brahm remembered enjoying it back in the heavenly world. It was a gift Persephone frequently gave to her acquaintances. I don't know if it'll go well with coffee. He began to think of new food to feed his daughter. That was all he could do. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Hey? No. Ah. Not here. Sha entered the garden, chasing after her rolling ball. She had accidentally kicked it here. Her pure face turned into one of sadness. This was a flower garden that grandfather especially cherished. Brahm was always kind, but when she took a step inside, Brahm scolded her harshly. She was scared of that side of him. But she had made a mistake while playing nearby. Thinking that she would get in trouble, she quickly looked around for the ball before Brahm saw. However, the ball must have been buried under flowers because she couldn't find it. Sha ended up walking deep into the garden. She shouldn't have been doing this. She couldn't. Tears brimmed in Scha's eyes as the flowers were hurt with every step she took. Then, Scha came across a window. The window that had been too high for her to see when she first came here was at her eye level so that she could look inside. That was where her mom was. The mom who used to visit her first thing in the morning and read her stories at night. However, her mom didn't smile at Sha anymore. Brahm told her that her mom was still in a deep sleep and couldn't meet Sha yet. He said when she came back, she would give Cha as much love as she had given before. He earnestly told Cha that she shouldn't cry and grow up with maturity so her mom could be happy when she finally woke up. However, Cha was no longer a young child, and she knew her mom wasn't dreaming but her instead. Still, Cha was actively making friends and working hard with her studies so her mom could smile when she opened her eyes. She dreamt of making the medicine to heal her mom someday. I wonder what mom's doing. She suddenly became curious about what her mom was doing since she was already here. She tiptoed and lifted her face above the window. Her mom was staring blankly ahead, leaning against the wall as usual. She looked feeble but still beautiful. Cha always thought her mom was quite pretty whenever she looked at her, and she wanted to be that pretty when she grew up. Brahm said Cha looked exactly like her mom from when she was young. Cha believed firmly in what he said. Mom, you can do it. Cha adorably clenched her fists with an encouraging look. Just then. Cha! I said not to go into the garden. She could hear Brahm shouting. Cha jumped in surprise and scurried away to avoid Brahm. Thankfully, the ball was nearby. After the brief commotion in the middle of the quiet garden. Flinch! Ananta's right thumb moved. No one saw. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. This is the 34th floor, the Gate of Mirrors. The trial of the 34th floor is beginning. Trial, since long ago, many have checked their appearance through mirrors, and mirrors have received the limelight as a holy artifact that could reflect the entire world. It was created as a pathway to another world. Sometimes, it was considered a demon's artifact that swallowed up what was real. Here, tens of thousands of such mirrors have been placed. Each mirror reflects each other, and it becomes harder to tell which is real and which is fake. Get your Avorit ovals at novelben.com. You are the one being reflected by them right now. From now, look for the real one and safely clear this trial. After quickly passing through the 31st floor to the 33rd floor, what greeted Yeon-woo was a dizzying amount of mirrors. The entire world was made of mirrors. In the ground, in the air, and in the sky. Every time he turned his head, he saw himself, and his appearances were reflected in another mirror and created more of him. Yeon-woo realized he was trapped between an innumerable amount of doppelgangers. He couldn't even tell the path in front of him and thought it was better to close his eyes and scatter his consciousness. I'm so dizzy. He knew he would be in danger if he began moving without any plan, so he plopped down on the ground. Kreutz should probably be somewhere nearby. He thought of spreading his consciousness to find him, but he decided not to. He was the one following him, not the other way around. He could have gone ahead to the 35th floor. He had already cleared through this place a long time ago, so it was probably better for him to wait ahead than stay here on this dizzy floor. Yeon-woo didn't plan on staying for a long time, either. The clock was ticking even now. Still, he had something to check before he could get on with the stage mission. Atran! The ground shook, and Atran jumped out from a portal frivolously. Have you called for me, push? I mean, customer. The corners of Atran's mouth were raised. He looked gleeful to hit the jackpot after a while. All the items Yeon-woo had requested of him were priceless. They were items you couldn't buy easily in the market, no matter how much money you gave. Materials to make kaini. Yeon-woo opened his mouth. The items you obtained. For now, this is it, sir. Please check. Yeon-woo quickly opened the quest window. Materials to create kaini. Apodis scales, 45/45. Kothran liquid, 5/5. Magic sword stone, 1/2. Jamshid's liquor, 2/5. Adamantin nova, 0/1. Hook. No way. He gathered this much in that short amount of time. Brontes, who had appeared beside him, dropped his mouth after seeing the items that Yeon-woo collected. The most logical out of the three, Starapes, also seemed to be taken aback. That was how hard it was to obtain the materials to make Cunning. They were materials that Hades didn't have enough of and called commodities. But in a few days, Atron had gathered most of them. Yeon-woo, who knew the abilities of By the Table, wasn't all that surprised. Rather, he acted like this was to be expected. The magic sword stone, 3 Jamshid's liquors, and the adamantine nova aren't here. And there are some I still need more of. I can get them if more time is given. However, don't you know how incredible it is just to have attained that much of the last 3, sir? Yeon-woo clicked his tongue. He knew he was being unreasonable. The materials in the list were meant for nothing more than to shape Cunning or support its functions. However, the last 3 were on a completely different level. The magic sword stone, Jamshid's liquor, and adamantine nova. They were difficult items to obtain in the lower world, and it was already impressive that he had gathered that much. Especially since Jamshid's liquor and adamantine nova are pretty much considered holy artifacts. Over 7 items that were nearly holy artifacts went into making Cunning. That was how priceless Cunning was. And just by getting this much, I'm in an incredible amount of debt to By the Table. He had used nearly all of the Summer Queen's wealth while cleaning up the outer space. He was contracted with By the Table on the receiving end of a sponsorship, but Yeon-woo still considered it a debt. Yeon-woo looked like a clump of money to Atron. Do I have to get the rest myself? We tried asking owners of the other items and did everything we could to make a deal with them. Fortunately, we're currently negotiating the price for the adamantine nova, so there'll be good news soon. Adamantine nova. Yeon-woo seemed surprised. So did the Cyclops Brontes and Sterapes. There's someone in the lower world who still has it. How surprising! Adamantine nova was a mystical stone created with the legendary material, adamantium. The name was given to it because it looked like a shining star. It was trickier to handle than adamantium, and it was categorized as a rare mineral, so only a few gods used it to make their holy artifacts. But a mortal was in possession of it. The owner's not known to the public, so I apologize for the fact that we cannot share the owner's name. Yeon-woo nodded and clicked his tongue. The tower sure is vast. The tower was where countless players challenged floors. There would definitely be hidden, skilled players. Still, it's a relief that you can obtain the remaining magic sword stone on this floor. Yeon-woo smirked coldly at what Atron said. You didn't leave it out because you wanted to confirm my abilities. Ha, ha ha. Oh, of course not. Why would I do something like that? Atron took a step back. Seeing that he didn't have anywhere to escape, Yeon-woo snorted. That attitude of By the Table was obvious anyway. As sponsors, if the one they sponsored didn't grow, their investment would have been for naught. Also, because Yeon-woo needed karma, he didn't plan on clearing this floor normally. Oh, right, and while you were in Tartarus, a letter arrived for you. Atron clasped his hands together at the good news, having been scared because he didn't know what Yeon-woo was going to do. A letter? Who is it? Through By the Table? Yes, sir. We were surprised at first, too, but the sender was the son of someone who works with us. He's the son of the Iron Lion. It's been a while since he went off the grid, but he was once famous as Blood Sword. Khan. Yeon-woo's eyes widened. Khan suddenly sent a letter? He was about to check its contents. However, I think it'll be better for you to open the letter after this trial is finished. There are many watchful eyes. Atron took another step back. He quickly scanned his surroundings. Like Kreutz, he didn't enjoy the 34th floor either. Through the forest of mirrors, different Yeon-woos who had the same appearance as Yeon-woo began to appear. Multiple Yeon-woos. Atron's eyes looked like the sparks of a nuclear bomb fading away. I have to know the real you to give you the letter. Atron disappeared back into the portal. He probably left after assuming what was going to happen next. Yeon-woo looked at his other selves. What is this? I thought this might be the case. There are quite a lot of them. This will be annoying. They were muttering with Yeon-woo's face and voice. And most of them were standing silently, observing the situation. It was the same reaction as Yeon-woo's, who became quieter in dangerous situations because he was thinking. The theme of the 34th floor would probably be self-denial. Finding the real me out of multiple mess. That was the most important. Mirrors were the only tool that could reflect oneself. And beyond that mirror, another me might swallow the real one, and people were scared of being swallowed by another version of themselves. In their eyes, they were the real ones, and me was the fake one. The 34th floor had been created with that in mind. Placing an innumerable amount of mirrors on the stage and allowing the reflected appearances to move freely. On the 34th floor, finding your real self was the main objective. Of course, the fakes would all pretend to be real and think and speak like they were real. There weren't many ways to differentiate between the real and fakes in that situation. They would kill each other until one died or speak with each other. Of course, in the former case, it was likely the real one would die. And then, the copies would all disappear as well. So most people tried to speak with the doppelgangers, though they all called themselves the real ones. It wasn't easy, but the moment the fakes discovered the real one, the stage would be finished. His brother had also chosen the latter. He had such a logical mindset that he was able to cause the copies to surrender after speaking with them. His brother had cleared the stage in a very short amount of time. On the other hand, Viera-dun dominated the fakes with her mental magic, and Valbik and Baeluk fought to the death until only one was left. Baeluk fought, thinking that the limits of his poison could be overcome faster if he released all of his poison at once. The other members were at a similar level, so there were only two ways to get through the stage. However, the Yeon-woos didn't attempt to fight to the death or convince each other. Time difference. Each of them tried to understand the real situation in the slowed-down world. They all asked one question. Am I fake? Each Yeon-woo only left a part of his consciousness behind and started to spin in front of the real one. It was an attempt to tell whether they were real or fake. Of course, Yeon-woo had an easy way to tell. Channeling. There might have been multiple Yeon-woos, but each god was unique in the universe. Hermes, Athena, Agars, Sito, Hondan, and even Persephone and Hades. The channelings from the heavenly world and Tartarus with Yeon-woo at the center were tied together in such a complex, web-like manner. Of course, the ones with faint connections would appear fake. The Yeon-woos who judged their channelings to be weak instantly broke the philosopher's stones inside of them. Blood poured from their mouths, and they faded away. They had decided to kill themselves. The dead Yeon-woos didn't have any regrets. They didn't even look wronged as they disappeared. Their judgment was cold and quick. It was the same mindset he had since Africa. He considered his life a tool. Finishing the mold of the Black King after making Cunning. Finding his brother's soul. For these two goals, he couldn't slow down or take a break. He's crazy. Shannon and Han-ryong gulped, watching Yeon-woo. They had cleared through the 34th floor in the past, too, but they had never seen a player decide to kill themselves. Players who climbed to the 34th floor were exceedingly confident in their skills and couldn't make rational decisions about themselves. No, that wasn't just rational, it was inhumane. Who in the world would be able to kill oneself so easily? Even though people made extreme decisions when they didn't have anything to live for, at the end of the day, life usually struggled to stay alive. However, the Yeon-woos didn't even blink. In an instant, half of them disappeared. Then, they asked the next question. Do I really own these blessings? Because the draconic, divine, and demonic blessings were supernatural, each of them was unique. The stage used data, but there would be limits to it. First, those who lacked the draconic blessings fell. Then, the demonic blessings, and next, those with weak divine blessings coughed blood. Once again, half of the remaining fakes fell. Like that, Yeon-woo continued to get rid of those who didn't have everything he should have had. After some time, only those who had the exact physical conditions as Yeon-woo were left. Each of them could pass as the real Yeon-woo no matter where they went. They had the complete hoarder's body. There was no other way to approach it. Then, internal investigation for the next question. Yeon-woo dug deeper into himself. From his body to his mind, into the world of his unconsciousness. Am I real? Yeon-woo's thinking abilities were something normal humans couldn't follow, having already taken on draconic qualities. They asked themselves whether they were thinking properly and if something was wrong with them. Those who were sure about themselves quickly pulled their magic bayonets out and cut their throats. Swoosh! Blood poured out, and their bodies fell over. Not suspecting yourself might leave room for arrogance in the future. That kind of mindset wasn't something the real one should have. Endless suspicion and restless effort were what made the Yeon-woo of today. He could never be arrogant about himself. After that, do I suspect the one next to me? The Yeon-woos who were suspicious dug their magic bayonets into their hearts. Once again, half disappeared. Pug. Because he couldn't judge properly. Next, those who had only been suspecting themselves. Quack. Those who had other thoughts. Pug. Those whose time difference had been misaligned because their focus wavered. Yeon-woo suspected himself multiple times and looked for the answer with assurance. The magic circuits were always at their necks to stab in without any hesitation if they were late or hesitating in their response. The shining forest of mirrors was stained blood red. Shannon and Han Ryeong were speechless as they watched the scene. Rebecca looked away, and Nemesis covered Nike's eyes with a complicated face. How long does he have to keep this up for? He thought Yeon-woo was becoming more humane, but there were still inhumane sides to Yeon-woo. Someone who was ready to throw his life away for his goal. That was how Nemesis saw Yeon-woo. At the end of multiple questions, there were only 2 Yeon-woos left. The 2 Yeon-woos opened their eyes at the same time. There was a strange light in the 2 sets of eyes under the masks. They had the same appearance as earlier, but they were feeling something different now. If they had felt longing earlier, now. How annoying! They both considered themselves real. Asking any more questions at this point was useless. Both of them would come to the same result anyway. Then, there was only one method left. Pat. The 2 Yeon-woos dashed at each other. Kwang. ******. Kwak-yu updates TN fell by, .com. The head of the Yeon-woo who died fell to the ground. Neither of them spoke, like the outcome was obvious. Oh, why? The dead Yeon-woo scattered blood and disappeared with a flash of light. A portal opened above him, and Atran appeared again. He had a petrified expression. There was so much blood that he was ankle-deep in it. How many Yeon-woos had died here? And because he knew their ends were from killing themselves, he felt strange. Atran always felt there were moments when Yeon-woo seemed inhuman. Isn't he a monster who looks human? Or like a robot who acts human? Ugh! Regardless of what Atran was thinking, Yeon-woo checked the message that popped up in front of him. All trials have been completed. You have accomplished an achievement that is not easily accomplished. Additional karma is being rewarded. You have left a great record. Would you like to register your name in the Hall of Fame? You have chosen not to register your name. However, even if not made public, your accomplishments will be left in the history of the tower, and you can change the status of your registration anytime. Like always, he ranked first. Except for the 10th stage, he was first place on every floor. Also, in the place where the last Yeon-woo previously stood, a strange black glass-like object was left. It wasn't that large, so if you didn't look closely, it was easy to overlook it. Even if you did check it. Piece of reflection. Category: Miscellaneous. Rank: D. Summary: a trace left behind after the reflections of the 34th floor broke. They look like pieces of glass or mirrors. They have some magic power, but there doesn't seem to be anything special about them. It was easy to think of it as a useless item. However, rise. The other pieces of the reflections floated lightly into his hand. Thankfully, all of the pieces had the same magic power that Yeon-woo had, so it was easy to find them. Swish! The pieces of the reflections spun around and combined into one. Clack, clack! A black bead formed in his palm. Magic Sword Stone. Category: Miscellaneous, Material. Rank: S. Summary: the thousands of pieces of reflections combined into one. If it is made into an artifact and the user of the artifact matches the data inside the stone, it will become an outstandingly sensitive artifact. On the other hand, if the owner and the data don't match, through reading and hacking, a skill inside of the data can be randomly assigned to the owner of the stone. The magic sword stone was relatively well known, so it could no longer be called a hidden piece. But still, only players who passed the trial on their first try could gain it, and it was tricky in that all those pieces had to be gathered. Also, because it had the data of its owner, if you put it out in the market, it was the same thing as revealing your weakness, so it was usually used as a material to make new artifacts. A divine artifact made with your data. Anyone would want it. His brother had created Dragon Slayer with the magic sword stone, and he had succeeded in strengthening it from S rank to X rank. Dragon Slayer was an outstanding weapon that still rumored among players. Yeon-woo wanted to use the magic sword stone to strengthen his magic bayonet, but Vigrid was nearly as powerful as Dragon Slayer, and he needed to use it for Cunning. You have succeeded in gathering the magic sword stones, 2 halves. So only 3 Jamshid liquors and the Adamantine Nova are left now. Since by the table could get the Adamantine Nova, he didn't have to worry about that, and all that was left was 3 Jamshid liquors. However, the problem was this. Jamshid is a being on the 70th floor. To be exact, Jamshid was the lord who ruled the 70th floor for a long time and passed away. His nickname was King of Thousands. His greedy and violent personality had been so impactful that it was still well known in the tower 1,000 years later. He liked to make alcohol out of boredom, and a small amount of wine that occasionally entered the market was sold at an expensive price. Yeon-woo had never drunk it before, but among people who enjoyed alcohol, it was treated as an elixir. I don't know how it'll be used to make Cunning though. The most important thing was that he needed to get it somehow. Of course, he might have been able to get it on the 70th floor. However, no matter how fast Yeon-woo ran, it was impossible for him to get to the 70th floor in the amount of time that was given. Even if it did, he would have had to get there without finding any of the hidden pieces or karma, so it was better not to. And the wariness of the 8 large clans would have increased. In the end, he had to find a way. No. It's not like there isn't any way at all. Yeon-woo knew someone who enjoyed taking care of precious items. There was someone who was as greedy and extravagant as Jamshid from a long time ago. And fortunately, he liked Yeon-woo. The Gluttony Emperor. It seemed like it was time to visit the Bloodland, the visit that he had been pushing back since the 23rd floor in the Demon's Forest and during the fight with Walpurgis Nacht. ******. I'm not even surprised anymore. High in the sky, Kreutz looked at the fight Yeon-woo had with his copies. His eyes under his helm were dark. Contrary to Yeon-woo's assumption that Kreutz had gone on ahead, Kreutz had summoned his flying dragon high up in the sky. It was to observe Yeon-woo without any copies of him being made. He wasn't surprised when he saw what he did. The mirror that exploded and the blood that stained the ground. The image of them killing themselves stayed in his head. And on one hand, he understood. He wondered if the Yeon-woo he met was the same Yeon-woo as before. I can never confront him as an enemy. However, with the business of Tartarus at hand, he didn't know how he was going to lead Yeon-woo to the regiment leader. ******. The letter he received through Atran began like this. Are you doing well, friend? Yeon-woo grinned because the letter was extremely fitting of Con. He hadn't shown himself once when Yeon-woo had looked for him back then, and this was all he started his letter with. The letter was long, and the first section mostly asked how Yeon-woo was. Information about what Con went through was near the end. Actually, after that day, I had to spend my days busily. I made a deal with the Devil Army. Yeon-woo's face turned stiff, eyes flashing. A deal with the Devil Army. It wasn't something to be taken lightly. Victoria said the people following them and Con were gone when she woke up. There weren't any details about what kind of deal Con had made with them. All he said was that there was nothing to worry about and that he was doing fine. Anyways, I left for the first time in a while to meet my damned father and heard you've been asking around for me. So I wrote this letter. But then, I also heard that you do deals here, too? Dang. I'm doing this through connections, but you're really amazing. Right? Yeon-woo lifted his gaze to look at Atran. He didn't say anything, but Atran shook his head as if he knew what he was going to ask. You already know that we're extremely secretive about the information on our customers. However, depending on the person, some constraints are ignored. Sir Con is a royal rank, and it was fine to tell him that you had a contract with us, whereas his is a secret. In fact, we don't even know it that well. Unless Con was stupid, he would have made a direct deal with by the table since he was trying to stay off the grid. You probably have a lot of questions, but this is it. It's like how you were hiding a lot from me in the beginning. Please understand it like that. But I'm doing fine, so don't worry, and deliver my greetings to Victoria. I'll come after I'm done with things here. Okay? Stay well until then. Con's letter ended like that. Where was he, and what was he doing? What deal did he make with the Devil Army? Why couldn't he find anything about Doyle? And what happened between the two of them? Yeon-woo sighed as he closed the letter. He didn't know if Con really was doing well or if he just acted like he was when he was actually getting into more trouble. But it's a relief that he's able to write to me. And he learned one other thing. So Con was the son of the Iron Lion. The mercenary clan Yeon-woo had seen in passing during the battle with Walpurgis Nacht, the Iron Lion clan. He didn't know that their master was Con's father. It wasn't necessarily a secret, but Yeon-woo hadn't looked into Con's background, so he hadn't known. If something happens, I can look for him through Iron Lion. He hoped, wherever Con was, he was doing well. And he became worried about where Doyle was and how he was doing. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Eeeok. Save me. Please. PL, ease. He. Centaurs. I've always wanted to eat them once. I heard their livers are so good. I wonder how it tastes. Half human, half horse beings. Centaurs were native to the 32nd floor. However, there weren't many, and they weren't social, so it was hard to meet them. However, because of their unmatched strength, whenever they did appear, they always received the spotlight. Natan was also one of those beings. When he was a teenager, he left because he didn't like the small society of his species, and he succeeded in entering Red Dragon's 81 Eyes. There was almost no one in the tower who didn't know the nickname Red-Eyed Archer. When he returned to his homeland, he felt good about himself because of the gazes of his old friends. However, his mother wasn't like them. She kept on telling him to stop and become free. He would be in danger if he went any further. Centaurs didn't belong on the dark battlefield but in a large, open field. Natan just shouted at his mother, telling her that she didn't know anything. He didn't like to listen to her nagging. He was progressing well. He was successful, so why was his mother so concerned? It was stressful, and he hated it. However, the moment he was at death's door, all Natan could remember was his mother's concerned eyes. What she said about him returning to their homeland anytime echoed in his ears. The smiling gluttony emperor looked like a demon to him. Mother, I'm sorry. Pug. The gluttony emperor's hand dug into his left lower body. He didn't resist. The predatory aura of the gluttony emperor made him lose all will to fight. The gluttony emperor dug his head into the cut. He could see the fresh beating liver. The thick veins got in the way, but he cut them off with his canines and swallowed everything up. Even that was a delicacy for the gluttony emperor. The image of him eating something alive may have looked disgusting, but the two dukes protected his side without any expressions on their faces. The two dukes, Duke Tuan-tien and Duke Mowgli, didn't take their eyes off as Natan died. Bloodland suffered huge losses when Duke Ardbat and Duke Robera died at the hands of the Summer Queen. They entered an official war with White Dragon, and the first thing the Gluttony Emperor and the two dukes did was hunt the old 81 Eyes. Now that Natan, the old left hand of the Summer Queen, had died, the damages to both sides were approximately equal. Of course, he didn't plan on ending things like this. If he did, he wouldn't have started the war in the first place. The Gluttony Emperor was going to work with Black Dragon to bring down White Dragon. There was only one thing he wanted: eating the Spring Queen's heart. The Gluttony Emperor's desire to try dragon meat someday hadn't changed. Also, he still had a small wish to try the One-Horned tribe even after the Martial King beat him up like that in the past. But if he ate the Spring Queen's heart, he would be able to relieve himself of both of them. Where else would there be fun prey like that? Crunch, crunch. MMM. The Gluttony Emperor slowly lifted his head after he finished eating. His face and clothes were covered in blood. He wiped his face with the handkerchief Duke Tuan-tien gave him and grinned. It was a smile of satisfaction after enjoying a good meal. Red energy gathered around his eyes and vanished. Predation and digestion. These skills of the Gluttony Emperor stacked up the magic power and blessings he ate into his body. Along with Bathory's vampiric sword, it was among the best of the energy drain skills. Usually, centaurs don't taste good because they have a lot of fat after being pent up in farms. But this one was quite muscular and tasted good. That's a relief, sir. But it won't be as good as dragon meat. I want to eat steak made of dragon meat. And how thrilling would wine made of dragon blood be? I must eat it someday. The more he ate these delicacies, the greater his obsession for dragon meat became. It seems that isn't too far off. Duke Tuan-tien handed him another handkerchief. Ah, is there good news? Black Dragon said they plan on attacking mainly White Dragon. Green Dragon will also attack them, and they want us to help. Another direct attack, Well, that's fun in its own way. The struggle of the three clans after Red Dragon crumbled was still ongoing. Clans like Bloodland and Elohim were looking to interfere as soon as a chance was presented. The reason why new emerging clans could sprout up was that the large clans were focused on each other. There were great battles every day, and it was confusing to differentiate between ally and foe. However, right now, the Gluttony Emperor didn't plan on betraying them. His revenge for his subordinate and desire for dragon meat had turned to one of obsession. If he saw a chance, he needed to take it. Good. Tuan-tien, you focus on the upcoming fight. It'll be a true buffet. Understood. Yes, sir. Duke Tuan-tien, the second in command of Bloodland, left thinking of the orders he would have to give out. Duke Mowgli took his place when he left. Your Majesty, the news you have been waiting for has just arrived. News. Our close friend, the Hoarder, who apologized saying he was too busy, has finally sent a message that he wants to see Your Majesty. What? Why are you telling me that now? The Gluttony Emperor's face became flushed. He burst up from his seat. What are you doing? You should be getting ready to return to the castle now. An important visitor is coming. Then we need to prepare as such. A feast. Prepare a feast. ******. After Yeon-woo told Bloodland he wanted to visit through Atrun, he visited the One-Horned tribe. "I'll be waiting here since outsiders aren't allowed." After sending Yeon-woo off, Kreutz set up a light barrier and began to rest. He hadn't rested since leaving Tartarus. Yeon-woo immediately went to Brahm. "Do I have some dragon blood left over?" "Yes." Brahm looked at Yeon-woo with a flabbergasted face. "If you're talking about the Summer Queens, I obviously used all of it. Why would there be any left?" There were many uses for dragon blood. Treasure with that much magic power wasn't common. Not only was it used to purify Vidyard, but it was also used to construct the outer space and different magical items. Brahm hadn't planned on using it much since it was a precious treasure. "You said to use it without hesitation. That there shouldn't be anything left over when you invest in things." You updates tnfelby.com. Of course he would be surprised that Yeon-woo came to ask about it suddenly. Brahm felt like he was being questioned and felt a bit unpleasant. But Yeon-woo seemed to be satisfied. "So that means there's still some left." "Only an extremely small amount." "That's good. If you have somewhere to use it, you can give me a diluted version. Or it can even be whatever's left after you use it." Brahm realized Yeon-woo was planning something again. Interest filled his face. "Where are you planning on using it?" "To give it to the Gluttony Emperor." "What?" Brahm's face slightly crumpled. The Gluttony Emperor was someone who had been after Shi. But Yeon-woo wanted to give him what? Before a misunderstanding occurred, Yeon-woo calmly explained his idea, and Brahm looked astonished. Then, he smirked. "So you're going to give the leftover blood and get Jamshid's liquor in return?" "Yes, that is right." "Do you know what Jamshid's liquor is?" "Among fanatics, it sold even more expensively than dragon blood." Jamshid's liquor wasn't just simply wine. It had the magic power of an old king. Its value as an elixir was outstanding. But it's not even a significant amount, and you just want to give him leftovers. The value of an item is subjective to whoever is buying it. I suppose. Brahm clicked his tongue after thinking of the Gluttony Emperor's obsession for dragon blood and dragon meat. "Then wait here a moment." Brahm stood up and left for his lab. When he came back some time later, he brought a tightly corked flask. Yeon-woo caught it and looked inside. Red blood was shining within it. "I diluted it and mixed it with a bunch of other stuff. I made it taste exactly like blood so that fool will like it. The Gluttony Emperor would probably still enjoy it. And this is dragon meat. I've been saving it in case of an emergency, so take as much as you want." Brahm put a big pouch on the table. Yeon-woo graciously accepted it. "Thank you. They were all yours anyway." "Also." Brahm's eyes flashed. "Do you think it's true that they can find Jeong-woo's soul?" "I'm not sure. But it seems it's definitely being held somewhere not in the beyond. So, you have to create Cunning as quickly as you can. Is that it?" "Yes." Brahm nodded his head heavily. "Hades, that guy didn't leave Olympus that often, so I didn't see him much myself, but he was very prideful and had responsibility for his work. That's probably why he's still in Tartarus." Then, he narrowed his eyes. "But it's a bit strange. He could have asked all of Olympus for assistance. But why?" Although Hades had a strong sense of responsibility, he wasn't one to let things get this far. Was something preventing him from asking for help? It was something Yeon-woo had thought of before, so he nodded in agreement. "Where I used to live, they had a saying that went like 100 people, 100 colors. It means that all people have their individual color or problem going on in their life. There's no need to interfere with what the gods are doing. Instead, I'll focus on creating Cunning. I used to live under the rule of the principle of causality once. You don't have to lecture me." Yeon-woo and Brahm made some more small talk. Then, Yeon-woo glanced at another room. He could see Ananta sitting on a rocking chair inside. Her eyes were still blank. Could I speak with Ananta for a moment? I'll be grateful if you do. Ananta won't be bored then. He entered the room Ananta was in. There was a cute bear-patterned blanket on her knees. It was one that she used frequently. It seemed she had brought it thinking her mom would be cold. Yeon-woo grinned and kneeled to be eye level with Ananta. Then, clack. He took off his mask and looked at Ananta in the eye with the same face Jeong-woo had. Ananta. Team, HH, Thursdays, Yahiko, 7/10. She didn't move. Yeon-woo sighed. He thought she would have some kind of reaction if she saw Jeong-woo's face, but nothing changed. Still, Yeon-woo continued to speak to Ananta. Even if she showed no reaction, somewhere in her subconscious, she was probably listening. And when she woke up, he hoped that she would tell him everything she had struggled to deal with. Yeon-woo was actually the one who wanted Ananta to regain consciousness the most. He wanted anyone who remembered and cherished his brother to be happy. He put his mask back on and turned around. Brahm was standing there with a bitter smile. Thank you. As always. That's what I should be saying. Are you leaving now? There's no need to spend any more time here. She will be angry if you leave without saying anything. Last time, I had a hard time trying to appease her because you left without a word. Yeon-woo laughed. Please convince her we. Before Yeon-woo could finish, there was the sound of something crashing in the hallway, and the door burst open. Unclee. She jumped into Yeon-woo's arms with her short legs. Yeon-woo quickly caught her in case she got hurt. Uncle. You were going to leave me behind again, weren't you? She looked Yeon-woo up and down and puffed her cheeks. When Yeon-woo had his mask on, it meant that he would leave soon. That's... Yeon-woo broke out in a cold sweat, not knowing how to excuse himself. You left me last time, too. How can you do that to me? She. You're gonna play with me a bit, right? Or... She looked down at the ground with a sad face. Do you not like being with me? Yeon-woo sighed. Who would be able to act coldly in front of such a cute niece? He took his mask back off. No. Of course not. Then what should we do? He. I want to do what you taught me last time. Hopscotch. That was fun. She broke out into a huge grin, like all her worries had disappeared. Then, she grabbed Yeon-woo's hand and pulled him out to the yard. Yeon-woo followed her, shaking his head. He heard that the boys in the village were crazy for She. He felt like he knew why. Brahm smiled as he watched Yeon-woo and She leave. He loves his niece too much. It was rare to see such a touching scene in the tower. Ananta was watching them silently. Her eyes focused and blurred again. Asterisk. Kreutz clicked his tongue. Tartarus, the one-horned tribe, and now Bloodland? When did he make all these connections? He didn't say anything because he promised to follow quietly, but he was surprised to be visiting Bloodland. He was curious what kind of relationship Yeon-woo and Bloodland had. If it's a good relationship, the regiment will have to revise our relationship with Bloodland, too. Kreutz and the rest of the fantasy regiment's judgment of Bloodland was simple. Crazy psychos. They were better than the lunatic devil army, though. And of those in the Bloodland, many were reasonable. The fantasy regiment had some ties with people in Bloodland. However, the reason why they thought poorly of Bloodland was simple. There's no knowing what their leader, the Gluttony Emperor, is thinking. Bloodland was modeled after an empire, so the emperor had the most authority and power. The people were deeply loyal to the emperor. The direction of the clan was decided by how the emperor felt. The Gluttony Emperor was the most traditional and had the most power out of all the leaders within Bloodland. His will was the will of the empire. Because of that, the Gluttony Emperor wasn't someone they could admire. He was always impulsive. When they were working, things would go wrong because he suddenly changed his mind, or when the clan was fighting a battle, he would sometimes disappear because he was hungry. At the same time, he was powerful enough to be one of the 9 kings, so there was no one to stop him. The only person who could was probably the martial king. The gluttony emperor was childish. A child who quickly lost interest in things and quit in the middle. But he also has a horrifying side to him, too. He's really crazy. And Yeon-woo was entering such a place of his own volition. He was worried, but the gears in his head were spinning. The regiment leaders had a deep interest in Yeon-woo. He said he needed to have the hoarder by his side all the time. He even said that the place he needed to be in was next to the hoarder. If Yeon-woo entered the fantasy regiment, he would be given a high position. And according to his relationships, the political standing of the fantasy regiment would be influenced. Isn't there a word for people like that? Kreutz remembered something his subordinates had said about people who had a lot of friends and hung out with many people. I thought he was an outsider. But he's totally an insider. You have entered the outer space land of red sunsets. A pink-orange dusk greeted Kreutz when he entered the portal after Yeon-woo. Then, on a red carpet, soldiers began to blow into their trumpets and tap on their drums. They were all wearing reddish armor. Yeon-woo's eyes widened at the fancy reception he hadn't expected. It wasn't because he was surprised but because he was flabbergasted. When had they prepared something like this? Bloodland was famous for having different welcoming ceremonies for different visitors. Out of the 4 different welcoming ceremonies they had, red, white, blue, and black, they were showing Yeon-woo the highest, red. It was usually what they did when a leader of one of the 8 large clans or someone of equal status came. And they're doing that for me. It was true he had tricked them to gain their trust, but he didn't know they held him in such high regard. Aside from that, even if the gluttony emperor liked him, he should have treated Yeon-woo with indifference since he was the leader of such a large clan. Of course, this kind of welcome wasn't bad for Yeon-woo. If they accepted him like this, it meant that he could take more from them. Oh ho! Who's this? If it isn't my close friend, the hoarder. A fancy palanquin came out of the door to the imperial castle. About 100 slaves were lifting it. Behind it, Duke Tuan Tien, Duke Moglai, and about 36 marquises followed like servants. Yaa! A violent aura that reeked of blood whirled around them. The fat gluttony emperor wobbled up from his fancy chair. He was smiling kindly, but there was blood on his chin. It was a gruesome image to anyone who would have seen it. Nice to meet you, sir. Yeon-woo didn't blink and bowed. No, he tried to. The gluttony emperor suddenly jumped down from the palanquin. The ground shook, and his chubby flesh jiggled. He wobbled over and held Yeon-woo up. What are you doing? Greeting a close friend like this? Your reputation is my reputation. Are you planning on making others look down on me? The gluttony emperor patted Yeon-woo's shoulder and grabbed his hand. Anyways, don't just stand there and come in. We have many things to talk about. Do you know how long I've been waiting? The gluttony emperor forced Yeon-woo on the palanquin and looked around. He glared at the military marching band and the welcoming committee. What are you doing? A special visitor has come. Greet him heartily this instant. They marched on with trumpets blaring in the background. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Ha ha ha. It's not much, but enjoy. The gluttony emperor burst out laughing and told Yeon-woo to sit down at the long table. This isn't much. Yeon-woo was in disbelief. The fruit wine, drake steak drenched in honey, and precious delicacies covered the plates. Red fire danced on the tips of the golden candles. Everything Yeon-woo had seen on the way here was extravagant. Servants in the castle all bowed to Yeon-woo when they saw him, and the soldiers greeted him even more dramatically than the welcoming committee had. However, the dining room was worse. Yeon-woo was sitting at the head of the table next to the gluttony emperor. The gluttony emperor signaled for him to eat. His crescent-curved eyes were uncomfortable to look at. He couldn't refuse the offer. He had been hungry anyway, so he slowly moved his hand to the spoon in front of him. Even if there was poison in it, he didn't have to worry. His residual poison blood could resist most poisons. The moment he tasted the soup, Yeon-woo's eyes widened. This is... The Gluttony Emperor burst out laughing. Pa ha ha ha. How is it? Isn't it incredible? Our chef, Duke Tuan Tien, went through a lot of trouble to make it. Come here. Thank you. I hope our visitor enjoys it. Duke Tuan Tien had a bright smile in his white chef's outfit. Yeon-woo laughed. Crazy bastards. They're putting out soup with caviar of a soul shark as an appetizer. The soul shark was a rare monster on the 68th floor that moved freely between reality and the imaginary world. It only appeared once in 10 years, so it was hard to find it. It was famous for the materials it provided. However, the real reason why the caviar of the soul shark was famous was that it had a great amount of holy power. Normal players would be able to control their magic power better just by eating it. Here, they had crushed it and made it into a soup. Also, the milk of the Terranian mountain sheep that was also in the soup was famous for increasing the limits of one's vitality. Find new stories on novelbin.com. This soup, in itself, was an elixir people would rush to devour. About 1 year of the clan's budget would have been used to make this soup. Yeon-woo carefully drank the fruity wine that was next to him, wondering what it was. A fresh taste wrapped around his tongue. Although he only had a sip, his magic power increased rapidly. Magic power has increased by 8. Magic power has increased by 6. It was definitely mixed with ambrosia, the fruit of gods that grew only on the 71st floor. Yeon-woo opened his draconic eyes to see the other fruits. Fenghuang soup. Triple head troll's meat. Golden apples honey. Mermaid king tail steak. Rare divine wine. Yeon-woo was so flabbergasted that he couldn't even laugh anymore. And Kreutz nodded heavily to himself, looking at Yeon-woo. He's being received in such a grandiose manner. He's definitely an insider. Team, HH, Thursdays, Yahiko, 8/10. Pa ha ha. I feel full watching you eat. The Gluttony Emperor patted his own stomach, looking at Yeon-woo's empty plates. Yeon-woo thought it was funny. Hilarious. He snorted. The Gluttony Emperor was full just by watching him? Actually, he had eaten most of the food here. His stomach, which had grown twice its original size, was proof of that. Of course, Yeon-woo had eaten quite a lot as well. The Gluttony Emperor may have been someone he needed to kill someday, but he had no reason to refuse something nice. Thanks to that, Yeon-woo was able to taste many elixirs he didn't even know about. There was the soup created using a fenghuang, the apple that increased your lifespan with just a single bite, the mermaid meat that increased your stamina, and the divine wine that kept ghosts away, among many others. Yeon-woo saw his stats increase at once. And lastly, try this. It'll be perfect for cleansing your palate. It was a golden wine in a small flask. It was beautiful, like waves reflecting the morning sunrise. This was the most unique out of all the foods he had enjoyed, so Yeon-woo examined it with his draconic eyes and was taken aback. This is... The Gluttony Emperor chuckled. He. You recognized it right away. You are correct. It is Jamshid's liquor. It's liquor that the king of 10,000, who was as cruel as the vampiric lord, made himself. I also only enjoy it when special visitors come. Yeon-woo didn't have anything to say. The Gluttony Emperor was giving Jamshid's liquor as an after-meal treat? He was probably giving it because he considered Yeon-woo a precious visitor, but Yeon-woo felt like his efforts to get it were in vain. What are you doing? Quickly, drink it. K. It's nice. The Gluttony Emperor tipped the flask back and had a happy smile. His layers of skin shook. Yeon-woo looked at him for a moment and brought the flask to his mouth. He could feel the blessings in his body try to circulate. Boo! Yes. Sir. Before Jamshid's liquor was absorbed into his body, he told Boo to store it somewhere else. You have obtained one of Jamshid's liquor. Currently collected, 3/5. Thankfully, a message saying that the liquor was separated into the subspace popped up. Yeon-woo sighed, and he looked at the Gluttony Emperor with a calm gaze. He was still trembling from the after effects of Jamshid's liquor. It was like looking at a high drug addict. Yeon-woo guessed the difference in power between him and the Emperor. He could see open spaces through his wide-open draconic eyes. The flaws were tied up in a complex manner. It was full of imperfections. What if he ran at him with Vigrid? The thought suddenly occurred to him. The Gluttony Emperor's obsession with dragon meat began a long time ago. That was why he had begun to pressure his brother way back when. That's also why he sent Viscount Lau. He was someone who Yeon-woo had to catch someday, like he had caught the Summer Queen. He felt an impulse to do it as the Emperor showed that attitude of his. But Yeon-woo slowly regained control of his emotions. The Gluttony Emperor wasn't someone who could be defeated that easily, and even if he succeeded, the real problem followed after. Outside, there were the 2 dukes, the 36 marquises, and the 108 counts. Behind them, there were tens of thousands of soldiers. He couldn't avoid all of them and run away. It wasn't time yet. And the Gluttony Emperor opened his eyes. Not knowing what Yeon-woo was thinking, he smiled with happy eyes. It's so fun to be able to eat with a cherished friend. I'm the thankful one. And this is a present I'm giving to your majesty. Yeon-woo pulled out a box and handed it to a servant next to him. The Emperor rubbed his hands together and licked his lips. Goodness! You didn't have to do something like this. You don't have to worry about it, but since you're offering it to me, I won't deny it. What had Yeon-woo brought? The Gluttony Emperor opened the box with an expectant face. Soon, his eyes widened and his chin fat trembled. This is dragon meat and dragon blood. As you can see, it's the Summer Queen's. Oh! Kwang! The Gluttony Emperor burst up from his chair. His flushed cheeks were filled with anticipation. The dragon meat and dragon blood he had wanted so much were in front of him. And it was from the last dragon, the Summer Queen. Tuan Tien! Quick! Quick! Kwang! Kwang! At the Gluttony Emperor's beckoning, Duke Tuan Tien hurried. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Ha ha ha! Today is the happiest day of my life. When will I be able to experience a day like this again? The Gluttony Emperor put down the plate he had been licking and trembled. Yeon-woo laughed. He didn't like seeing the Gluttony Emperor so happy, but the things he gave the Gluttony Emperor were useless to him. He had only brought dragon meat scratched off from the ribs, and the blood was only what was left over after they were done using it. It was hilarious to see him be so happy with what was merely trash. Moreover, he was someone who ate sole shark caviar or fenghuang soup until he was full. That was why Yeon-woo saw that the value was subjective to whoever bought it. He couldn't help but laugh. Just then, red light gathered in the Gluttony Emperor's eyes and vanished. His large stomach waved grotesquely like a snake trying to digest what it swallowed whole. Then... What? The pocket watch shook. Yeon-woo put his hand inside of his jacket and touched the pocket watch. It was different from the vibration he felt when he heard his brother's voice. It's similar to the time when it came into contact with the despair and grief of the Black King. That meant... Does the Gluttony Emperor have something to do with the pocket watch? Just then, the 2 voices of the Cyclopes rang in his head. Master, that's... It's a soul stone. Ha! Were they that common? What? Yeon-woo's eyes widened. Why was the soul stone coming up here? At that moment, Yeon-woo was able to share the vision of the 2 Cyclops. There was something bundled in the chest of the Gluttony Emperor. The dragon meat that the Gluttony Emperor had swallowed was being taken apart inside him and circulated throughout his body. It looks like gula. But he's not even using 5% of the soul stone. Is he just barely using Lucille's authority? Humph. That's like putting a pearl necklace on a pig. Brontes and Sterapes didn't stop criticizing the Gluttony Emperor. However, Yeon-woo was able to learn something from what they said. There wasn't just a single thing or two that was off about the Gluttony Emperor. It wasn't easy to tell where his power came from. But if he was borrowing that strength, wouldn't there be a way to defeat him? The Gluttony Emperor had an authority that could digest the blessings he swallowed and turn them into his power. Of course, Yeon-woo didn't have to worry about it because he wasn't going to give the Gluttony Emperor his power, but the authorities were still annoying. Unless one was a strong player like the Martial King, one wouldn't want to go against the Gluttony Emperor. Thinking about it now, the Gluttony Emperor was treated as the weakest and most powerless king in the history of Bloodlands leaders. And then he suddenly became stronger. It made sense if he really had borrowed the strength of the Soul Stone from Lucille like what the two Cyclops said. And if it was true, he might have discovered a way to bring the Gluttony Emperor down. Yeon-woo hid his sharp gaze. The Gluttony Emperor. How should I bring him down? Yeon-woo had picked his next target to be the Gluttony Emperor. The Gluttony Emperor had finished digesting, and he began to speak in a serious voice. I'll swear on my name. If you need anything in the future, let me know. The entire empire and I will forever be your friend. He looks like he's high. Yeon-woo nodded. It seemed appropriate to bring it up now. Then, may I request something from you? Go right ahead. I said I'm your friend. Did he know how dangerous what he said was? Can I have some more Jamshid's liquors? The liquor? Did you like it that much? Actually, I have to use it for something personal. Yeon-woo explained that he needed it for a weapon. How much do you need? I need about 2 barrels of it. To be exact, only 2 cups were needed, but he wanted to get everything he could. The Gluttony Emperor didn't respond for a while. He said he would do anything, but giving Jamshid's liquor was something else. He had to struggle to get the Jamshid's liquor as well. Actually, it was so precious that he always drank it with careful hands, but when Yeon-woo said to give it all up, he felt his heart fall to his feet. What happens if you don't have it? Yeon-woo answered with a slightly exhausted gaze. I might be in danger. It would be harder to help you in the future. Of course, this is only a request, so you can deny it if you want to. How can I force you to give me something? Yeon-woo spoke like it was okay to deny his request, but the Gluttony Emperor had his reputation as an emperor and couldn't take back what he said. And in this dining room, many subordinates were watching him. They looked at him with assurance that he would give Yeon-woo the liquor. Your Majesty. Just then, Duke Tuan Tien carefully approached the emperor and spoke in his ear. Yeon-woo's eyes flashed. He wondered what the emperor would say next. Ahem. You said you needed the liquor, right? He narrowed his eyes with a cough. But as you know, Jamshid's liquor is extremely precious to us, and I cannot give it without permission from advisors. Is that so? Oh well. However, it's not impossible. Let's make a deal. A deal. You were also attacked by that damned Summer Queen on the 27th or 28th floor, right? Yeon-woo realized what the emperor was going to say. Yes. Then work with us. We're actually working together with Black Dragon to take revenge for Duke Ardbad. Help us. Yeon-woo's eyes widened. Work with Black Dragon. To catch White Dragon. I won't be of much help. Up-to-date OVLS on OVL, bin.cm. Don't be like that. Do you think I don't know you split apart Triton alone? And you have those friends in the shadows of yours. He knows about Shannon and the others. The Gluttony Emperor spoke like it was nothing, but Yeon-woo didn't miss the nuance in his words. It was incredible that his spirit familiars hadn't been caught until now. With everyone focused on him, his hand was beginning to be shown. The Bloodland had probably looked into Yeon-woo, too. And the Fantasy Regiment. The Gluttony Emperor-eyed Kreutz. And even in that moment, he wasn't a picky wealthy man but the emperor of a country. With where your teacher is, with the one-horned tribe. Just then, a violent aura spread through the hall. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. That was easy. Under the mask, Yeon-woo was smiling brightly with his fangs bared. His enemies would be fighting each other. If he could get the Jamshid's liquor just by lifting a single finger, it would be a huge profit for him. The only thing worrying him was the participation of the one-horned tribe, but the Martial King would take care of that. Also, it's not weird if something happens in the war. Yeon-woo had already started to calculate how to take the Gluttony Emperor's life in the confusion of the battle. Shannon began to hum to himself. Stabbing in the back, what a fun song.